All right, number 1, we are simplifying the following radical, the square root of 40. So we're looking at what is the biggest perfect square that goes into 40. If you're not too sure, we can start by taking 40 and dividing by 2. That gives me 20, so that tells me where I'm going to start on my perfect squares list. I'm going to list my perfect squares up here. 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64. That should be good for right now. So 20 is in between 16 and 25, so I'm going to check 16 first. Does 16 work on your calculator? No, it will not. Now we'll try 9. Does 9 work? Nope. So 4, yes, you get 10. So we're going to split 40 into the square root of 4 times the square root of 10, which if you simplify that gives you 2 square root of 10 for your final answer. Number 2, I've got the square root of 500. So we're looking at what is the biggest perfect square that goes into 500. Since it ends in 2 zeros, we should check 100 because it's probably going to work. And if you take 500 divide by 100, we get 5. So that is the biggest perfect square that goes into 500. So square root of 100 times the square root of 5. And then we simplify the square root of 100 to give us 10 square root of 5 for your final answer. Number 3. So square root of 64x to the 8th. 64 is a perfect square, so the square root of 64, that equals 8. And then if I'm looking at x to the 8th, that's saying that I have 8 x's. And I'm looking at how many groups of 2 can I make with that. I can make 1, 2, 3, 4. So my exponent on my variable will be to the 4th power. And that's because there are 4 groups of 2 x's. Okay, number 4. Square root of 45. So we're looking for the biggest perfect square that goes in. If we're not sure, we can take that 45, divide by 2, gives us 22.5. That's our starting point to see where we're going to be able to check. So 22.5 is in between here as well, 16 and 25. So let's check 16 first. When I divide by 16, do I get a whole number? No, so I'm going to check 9 next. And that, in fact, does give us 5. So we're going to split the square root of 45 into the square root of 9 times the square root of 5. And the square root of 9 gives me 3 square root of 5. Now I just got to deal with my exponents on my variable. I've got b to the 5th power, which means I have 5 b's. So ask yourself, how many groups of 2 can you make? 1, 2. So we will have b to the 2nd power with 1 left over on the inside. But let's go ahead and make this answer look a little bit nicer. Let's put all of our numbers outside together. So we'll have 3b squared with the square root of 5b for your final answer. Number 5, we have to multiply first. So anytime there's a multiplication symbol, it means you have to multiply in order to simplify first. So this would be the square root of 32. And then we're looking for the biggest perfect square to go into 32, and that would be 16. And 2 in the square root of 16 would be 4 square root of 2 for your final answer. Number 6. These parentheses here mean multiplication, so we're really multiplying our coefficients together. So let's take 2 times 3, that gives me my 6. And then we're taking and multiplying the square root of 3 times the square root of 4 to give me the square root of 12. And I can simplify this because the square root of 12 is the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. And this would be 2 times the square root of 3 with that 6 in front. So when I multiply those together, I get 12 square root of 3. You could have also simplified this radical first and changed it to 3 times 2, which equals 6, and then multiplied that together with your 2 square root of 3 to give you your final answer of 12 square root of 3. Number 7. We are multiplying these, so we're going to multiply everything underneath the square root together. So 2 times 50 gives me 100. and then y to the 5th times y to the 1st power would be y to the 6th power. So square root of 100, and that would give me 10. Then we're looking at y to the 6th power, so that means I have 6 y's. So I have how many groups of 2? I can circle my groups of 2. I have y to the 3rd power for your final answer. Number 8. We're going to go ahead, multiply again, multiply our coefficients together. Multiply those, I get negative 10. And when I multiply my radicals together, positive 8 times positive 8 gives me the square root of 64. And the square root of 64 is 8. So I have negative 10 times 8, which is negative 80. And the last example here on this first page, multiply our coefficients together, which my coefficient of this first term here is 1. So when I take and I multiply 1 times 6 together, that gives me 6. And then underneath my square root, I take 2x times 15x to give me 30x squared. And 30 is actually as simplified as it can be. We can't take anything out of 30 that is a perfect square. So we'll leave that underneath the square root, but we can simplify the square root of x squared, because that means I have 2 x's, which is one group. So I would have 6x to the 1st power with the leftover square root of 30.